Sippers, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Tea With Me podcast. If you don't know by now, we're doing 3 episodes a week. Patreon episode on a Monday, which is like a wee secret under the counter private audio episode, which you can access on patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. That's patreon.com/teawithmepodcast, and there's loads of other cool things over there. But then just for everyone, for the great unwashed, we do the podcast on a Wednesday now, on a Friday, and I don't know why I went a little bit Trump with my hands there, okay, if you're watching the video episode. And a lot of people are going, mate, that's potentially the worst Trump I've heard. Well, I didn't say which Trump I was doing. It wasn't Donald Trump. I was actually doing an impression of Gareth Trump, who's a different guy that you don't know. It's not just because I can't do an impression of Donald Trump. I've got a guest this week, not literally in the studio because thou shall not pass. Okay, we're keeping the quarantine going here. The bridge of the portcullis is up. Everybody knows I live in a medieval style 16th century castle. This guest and I have done a podcast. Get ready for this. Get ready to blow your fucking clogs off. We've done an episode virtually over the internet. What? Yes. I wouldn't have believed it if you told me this 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't have believed you, but it's possible. Now, here's where the small print is. I normally do this with producer Dan and Big Mike. Okay, they do all the technical stuff, and I just sit here, speak, and look damn good. But I'm having to do it by myself. Okay, and the guys are on hand for me to call, for me to text, or whatever. But producer Dan specifically said, use the app Zoom to do these video podcasts, and we spent last night setting it up. And what did I do today? Did not use Zoom. Did no use the one he told me to. And you know what? I fucked it up. And there's a moral in this, and that is that Dan is always right. And I don't know why I did it. It was really rude, but I tried to get the Zoom going. The guest, by the way, is Jimeoin. I should say that. Jimeoin is a comedian originally from Northern Ireland who moved over to Australia. He'll talk about this, but he had no aspirations of being a stand-up. He moved over there to work on a building site, ended up becoming a comedy superstar over there, like literally a comedy superstar, TV, films, all that kind of stuff. And he's done live at the Apollo a number of times, and I met him when we did a sketch show for BBC Northern Ireland called Monumental. And spoiler alert, it wasn't, but it was a fun episode that I did, and the highlights of me on it are on my YouTube channel, Monumental, if you want to see me wearing a cool cardigan. But Jimeoin stood out to me as a very, very, very nice guy when I was doing the show. I am a big fan of his stand-up. If you haven't seen it, a lot of you will. If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. You'll get a lot of it on YouTube. He's very, very funny, and in a both a traditional way of like storytelling when you go and see him live, but also like a physical way, like he clowns about on stage. I don't know, I don't think there's many comedians like him. I think he's got his own distinct style, and that's not very common nowadays in comedy. So enjoy this episode with Jimeoin. But the small print is, the way I recorded it, Jim sounds good, and we both look okay. We've got the split screen going on. That's fine. For some unknown reason, I sound like a chipmunk. My voice is slightly elevated, and I don't know why, because I definitely don't speak like this. But for some reason, when you watch this video, I speak like this here. And this will be the last time I get it wrong, technical wise. But I don't know why. But for some reason, Jimeoin talks in his normal voice, and I speak like this here. Now, this here isn't my normal voice, but for some reason in the video, that's what it is. So from now on, I'm going to do what producer Dan says, because we're doing loads more video episode interviews with really well-known people. Some cracking guests coming up. So I'm really going to figure that out. I'm actually doing that after recording this. We're going to figure it out. But enjoy it. There's a little bit of an echo at the start as well. That's my bad. It gets better as it goes on. It's something a wee bit different. Next week will just be me on the podcast. The next episode on Friday, because we're doing Wednesday, Friday, and then we're just going to split it up. We're going to do me doing one, me and a guest, me doing one, me and a guest. And who knows, maybe I'll just fire out more, because there's so many people I want to podcast with, and hey, I've got the time. Okay, I've got the time. So enjoy this episode. This is a Tea With Me episode with the legend that is Jimeoin. God, we've done it. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
They're gonna write about this down the line.
Mm,
That we figured this out.
I know.
Are you
Geniuses.
are you in Australia at the minute?
Uh-huh. Melbourne.
And I don't know how far ahead time wise you are, but do you know about coronavirus yet?
No. Yeah, tell what's the latest. What's the latest?
You're gonna enjoy it.
The port shirt. I know that much.
Yeah. So are you properly like in lockdown? Are you isolating?
Yeah, the shop shut today. What else happened today? Schools closed. Schools closed officially tomorrow, but we didn't bother sending our 8-year-old today. He had a bit of a runny nose.
Oh dear.
Well, that's just, we're all paranoid. Kids get runny noses all the time, so who knows?
Yeah. Hang on one sec. I'm just gonna plug this into here. Yeah, that's better now. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, this is the first Skype one of these I've done. It's first international one that I've done, definitely. So it's a big moment. This podcast, Jim, is called Tea With Me, and it's where sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't, but it's mainly just about drinking tea. Do you drink tea? What are you drinking right now? Do you actually?
Yeah, I've got a cup of peppermint tea. I'm going to top it up.
Still counts. Yep, still counts.
And I'll stick the kettle on, genuinely, for sound effects.
This is the first live tea making we've had on the podcast.
Yeah, on the other side of the world, courtesy of the internet. And
how's it staying in the cup if you're on the bottom of the world?
Yeah. What's those forces called? Those rotational forces.
I don't know. I did double award science and got a double A in my GCSE. But what I want to ask you is, how badly are you missing doing stand up?
Luckily, I had done a lot of gigs leading up to this. So, like, even within this year, January, I did a tour of the east coast of Australia. Then I did a tour of the UK. And then I did Adelaide Fringe. And I was almost pushing my luck, away too much. So Adelaide Fringe was the Sunday, when on the Saturday they said, right, that's it. And the Sunday I had a show, and that was the last. Everything was cancelled after that. So I've been doing, a hell of a lot of gigs up until now, but I'm kind of curious to see how rusty we all get, because if I haven't done a gig, honestly, for a couple of weeks, I get quite nervous and forget what it is, how it goes. You don't really, as you don't really kind of overly rehearse it. It's just when you do it a lot, it seems to get fluent. And if you haven't done it, then it's clunky. So we'll see.
Yeah. My big fear is that we all come out of this when everything's back to normal and the comedy clubs are open with exactly the same material.
I know.
Just asking people backstage, are you doing a bit about this coronavirus? Because we all will be. We all have a show called Lockdown.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't have any time to write new jokes. I've been really busy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Nobody's busy. So when I ask people to do this podcast, I feel like everybody should say yes, because we don't have anything else going on.
We're jumping on board. I saw on the Irish news that the Port Stewart's become this sort of place where everyone's going to because they're getting out of the big smokes.
Yeah, it's sort of defeating we're not doing the whole social isolating thing great here, because what we're doing is going, let's just get outside, get into nature where there's not really going to be many people. So people are going to forest parks, the beach, and all that kind of thing. But the problem is everybody's going to the beach. So Portrush and Port Stewart are just like peak season at the minute. And, you have 7 people per dodgem in Barry's. So there's no social isolating going on here. See
Right.
where you live in Australia. Is it like a built up area, spread out
Yeah.
place? Do you live in the middle of nowhere or?
No, I live in Melbourne, which is 4.5 million people,
Ah,
and they're trying to sort of isolate, as best you can. They had a big thing in Bondi Beach. Where everyone went to Bondi Beach, and they were raging with them.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
today, I didn't see anybody at all.
But
Really,
it,
I went to the park, but we didn't, get near anybody. Other people were in the park, but you weren't near anybody. And like you're super paranoid with your kids, going, "Don't touch that," and they're all
it
telling me to chillax, calm down.
it's funny as well how you look at people that aren't isolating, like people that are having parties, people that are going to bars, and you're raging, going, "Oh, you shouldn't do that! Like what dickheads!" But then parties going, "That looks like a lot of fun, though." You
It
know?
is, I know.
I mean,
But it seems to be quite a big thing in Ireland, or people with the. It's hard not to talk about this. We're talking about something else, but anyway, it's hard not to get
absolutely.
away. And the coronavirus, the tea's nice though. I've just got my tea.
First of
But
all, I appreciate a good mug, and that looks like a nice mug to drink tea out of.
yeah, that was a party that my wife went to, and they gave everyone a cup. And
I mean, I
she,
feel like I'm translating that to your wife stole it, but
yeah, well, she got one, and then all other people who didn't want their cups, she started. Luckily, she had a big handbag on her, and we ended up. We did well. It's freaking good cups. I've
it
lived
is.
my life drinking out of bad cups, like even a mug.
Well,
Uh, I
didn't
don't
you
like a big
start?
mug tea.
Didn't you were a builder at one point? Was that right? Like when you left school, when you first moved over to
Yeah,
Australia, or a
yeah,
tradesman
yeah.
anyway? So you're probably
I
used to
was,
drinking out of just whatever mugs were going. So now you can appreciate a good cup.
yeah. Well, I never really understood the difference until I had a cup of tea from a thin cup and the way it holds the heat
Yeah.
quite well.
But do you
And
not feel yourself getting a bit with a thin cup? Do you not find yourself body language wise getting a bit more dainty?
yeah, yeah, you do. Your little finger comes out.
Just a bit lighter,
Uh,
you know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They're not a big cup, but that's a big cup there. That's a nice big cup.
It is, yeah.
I've stopped taking sugar about maybe a year ago, and I was almost going to give up on it. Going, I used to really love a cup of tea, but without the sugar, it wasn't. It just wasn't working for me, and it took quite a while, maybe a month or more, where I was drinking tea, thinking, what is the point? And then it just sort of bing, and I was back on board again. So yeah, this
So
one
you,
I
are
got
you know no sugar at the minute?
no
Or
sugar
you're back
for
in with the sugar?
over a year, no sugar for over a year, more maybe, yeah.
You know, I
And that's
think
a
you.
peppermint cup of tea. That's a peppermint cup of tea because it's just night time. My wife was drinking a peppermint cup, and I kind of like it. It's kind of nice, something different.
It's still illegal back home. Peppermint tea.
Aye.
We're still not accepting that into the tea culture. But
Yeah,
I feel like
I would be quite judgmental on people drinking that stuff too, to be honest.
I feel like once you stop having sugar in tea, you appreciate tea more as a drink because when you're having sugar, you're just sort of tasting the sugar.
Yep.
Whereas, sometimes you just got to go bareback with the tea and go, this is the way the
Yeah.
Lord Jesus intended us to have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
The Dalai
Um,
Lama. All right. Where's it from? India.
um, I thought it was Ballymena, but I mean, if you know
Yeah.
if you know different, then
Yeah, it
I feel
could
like
be.
we were the first ones to put milk in it. I feel like there shouldn't naturally be milk in it, but we were
What
like,
do you
let's
What do
just see
you drink? What's your builder's tea equivalent?
just like a strong cup of Tetley.
Tetley.
Do
Tetley.
you go living in Australia? Do you shop out there? I guess there's loads of like British and Irish shops doing all that kind of stuff. Do you go and seek that out, or have you been there
No.
so long you just get the Australian brands?
Yeah, just the Australian brand. Yeah.
Does the novelty of that wear off? Like when you first sort of see like potato, cheese, and onion and stuff, and Vita, are you like, this is it? I'm always going to buy this, and then very quickly do you go, okay, that's I'm moving on.
Yeah, yeah. I never really remembered having that sort of nostalgia in the
Yeah.
first place. I get to go home quite a bit, so you
How,
know.
that's what I was going to ask you. How often how many months of the year on average do you spend down under?
well, yeah, I live here, but then I tour, and I would do 3 months in the UK and Ireland, and just doing gigs around there. All it's like a fly in, fly out sort of lifestyle where people working on mines or on the oil rigs. That's sort of like they fly. They call P4 or something they call where they fly in, fly out,
Yeah.
and that's really what I do. So I come in, work solid, which is great. I did the whole of February, fly into Birmingham, drive around the country, and then fly back again. So yeah, 3 months, and then the rest of the time I tour and live in Australia.
So take me back a bit. So I feel like I know your story a bit of, I think, I think you left here at like between 18 and 21, something like that.
Yeah, no, 22. Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I left home. Yeah, Northern Ireland. Yeah, Port Stewart at 18, and then I went to London until I was 22. At 22, I was at college doing a building management course, and then I went to Australia at 22, and then when I was there a year, 23, I started doing stand up.
And when you lived here, like back home, did you ever do stand up? Was stand up something you
No,
only picked up when you went? And
yeah,
was there no notion to doing it?
no, I didn't even know what it was. To be perfectly honest, really naive. I knew who Billy Connolly was, I knew who Dave Allen was, but didn't really know there was a scene beyond that. I just thought they were two cats out there doing. And I suppose, I was aware of
Yeah.
Tommy Cooper, but they were on TV, and I never really tuned into it that much. I really wasn't uh, seeing it as an art form or something that I was interested in until I came to Australia.
Yeah, because
And it was
I
only,
mean, you don't know there's an amateur scene. A lot of the
no,
time when you don't do stand up, like I think I was about 18 the first time I did it, and I was just googling stand up comedy nights in Belfast. I knew the Empire was going, and that was it. I was like, the Empire's for like guys like Colin Murphy, Jake O'Kane that are on TV, but
uh,
I thought that's it. I was like, there's no other gigs, and then
yeah,
you
yeah,
find out
exactly.
actually there's a show this Saturday night for a fiver in, and yeah, it's mad how your perception of stand up, and then once you do it, you realize there's a million comedians in
Yeah,
the
I love everyone's first story of. So what was yours? You're 18 and you went where?
black. You ever heard of the Black Box in Belfast?
No.
So it's like a say new theatre. It's probably been going for about 15
Oh,
years, but
yeah.
it's in the Cathedral Quarter, which is
And it was a
been
comedy
totally
stand-up night.
revamped. It was a stand-up night, and the lineup was. Do you remember Dermot Core? There was a guy called Dermot Core from Coal Island who had two series in BBC Northern Ireland of like his own sketch show. He did
Uh-huh.
stand up, and it was him, a fella called Paul Curry. Would you know Paul from like doing the
Yes, oh
Fringe and
yeah,
stuff like that?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know Paul well.
Paul ran it. Paul gave me my first ever gig. Neil Dugan.
Yes, I know Neil, yeah. Totally, I've done gigs in Neil in Glasgow.
Neil's brilliant. I appreciate comedians that still wear a suit. There's
Yeah.
something about that. I don't do it, but there's something about that where I go, I'm glad that people do that.
Uh-huh. He does this
Neil,
thing about he does this thing about his mate reckon he can take his dad on, and then they all
ye-
watched over the fence, the dad
yeah,
beating him up.
yeah, yeah.
And he goes, that actually happened to his friend.
He did. Neil would be, I'm sure you might be saying this, like what, early 50s maybe, something
Yeah,
like
my
that.
age, yeah, yeah.
And so we did a show on Radio Ulster a couple of years ago called Live at the Sunflower, where it was for basically new comedians to do 5 minutes, goes out in the radio, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I asked Neil to do it, and he was really, don't know if he was nervous, but every comedian on was from the age of like 20 to 30 maybe, and we're all wearing jeans and t-shirt. Neil shows up in a suit, and I remember some people in the audience, maybe, or other comedians, sort of giving him a look of, this guy's my dad's age. He got up and delivered the best set of the night. Just
Right.
an unbelievable set, and he's taken like a year's break from stand up, just because he works full time. He has a big job kind of, but I hope he comes back because there's something about
Yeah.
that like more traditional style of stand up.
Yeah.
Proper punchlines
that I really like. So everybody that did that first gig that I did is now headlines. Everybody, it's a weird one because how many times do you look back at a poster or a lineup and go, that guy doesn't do stand up anymore, that guy doesn't do it. But this was one where everybody has gone on to do way more stand up.
Right.
I
It's like
I
that.
I I died so badly my first gig, so bad, because whenever I was 18 or 19, I think it was 18, I looked 13, so I already had that in with the crowd where they looked at me and thought, oh, God bless him. I was already getting laughs because of how young I looked and out of place at a comedy club. But I wrote a script. I didn't know how to write stand up, so I wrote a script like word for word. I was like, I'll learn this, I'll do material. But I'd never performed before, so as soon as I
Yeah.
got on stage, I didn't realize the nerves would throw me off. I
Yeah.
forgot a couple of words in my script, and then I couldn't remember one more thing, so I just fell apart. But I started talking about it. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like, I've forgotten all my jokes. That kind of brought me a bit of laughter, but it was so bad. I remember leaving that comedy club the first time going, I'm glad that I did that, but I'll never do it again. And then like 6 months later, I was like, we'll see how this goes. Went a wee bit better, and I just sort of started doing it from there. But it's not like I turned my hand to it and it started great. But those,
Baptism of fire, isn't it? It's like,
well,
ooh.
so your first gig was in Australia?
Yeah, I told jokes, like as in jokes.
Yeah,
Which I love gags. I love a good gag.
same,
And
same.
I started telling them, and then they started laughing at the fact that I was telling a joke. And I thought they'd heard the joke because they started, like, they go, oh, yeah, like, I know that joke. And then I go, oh, you've heard that one? Do you know that one? And then I start, all right, I thought, okay, forget that. And then that was getting laughs. That was getting, like, because they thought that was my act. So I
Right,
was
right, right.
genuinely thinking, oh, they know this one. Oh, they know this one. And then I eventually got the gags that were good gags that I knew nobody, like, they weren't run-of-the-mill gags, ones that catch you off guard. Yeah, fair enough. And then that was my introduction to it. I watched the rest of the night and loved it. I just thought, oh my God, we've been standing in bars, playing pool, going to bands or doing what we were told to do. And I just thought, this is so different. I felt like I had discovered it. In this little dark room in the back in Sydney. It was the only club in Sydney. There was a comedy club there. It was shit. This was a Monday night. And I just felt, I just couldn't wait to go again the next week and watch. And I got up and I wrote a script the next week. And it didn't kind of go too well. It's like your thing where you say you were getting laughs, saying I wasn't getting laughs. And then I just there was a guy, Bob Franklin, who became a real big inspiration. And he was living with these two guys from Belfast. And they were in a flat in Bondi, and we all became friends. And he was doing stand-up for a while. And I was saying to him things socially, and he'd laugh, and then he'd look at me and go, so this happened a few times, he'd laugh, and he'd go, you should say that on stage, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I go, they wouldn't get that. And he goes, oh, you'd be surprised. And then he started back, like, saying things, you should say that. So then I started saying the things that he would say that I had said, and they would get big laughs.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was. This gives you the timing of it, right? So the Berlin Wall came down, and we're watching TV, and someone's over the moon. We're all over the moon. I go, you wouldn't have been if you'd been digging a tunnel for the last 6 months. And, Bobby kind of laughed in behind his book, and then did this look over at me. You should say that on stage, Jimmy. And that was the line that got a big laugh. And I went, oh, fuck, yeah, now I know what to... This is the sort of shit I should be trying to sort of tap into. And from that, I did tap into all these kind of little comments and little sly remarks that you probably have in your repertoire, but you don't realize those are the things that people want to laugh at. You were thinking, oh, it has to be, it was things that made me laugh and made my friends laugh were the things that were the best bits.
And what was the transition of not working on the building side and just going more full time into stand up over there? Was it like a very quick thing for you, or was it more gradual?
back then there was a recession, and interest rates went from 6% to 17%. I was working on a building site, and I had holidays off, and I was booked to do this comedy club in Melbourne, and then they asked me to come back again, and the guy said to me that employed me, goes, Jimeoin, I'd do it because we don't really have a job for you at the end of this job, so you should. So he kind of told me like the job had finished, so I went, she should go down because there is no job really for you after this. So I finished, went down, did the 4 weeks work in Melbourne, which led into I still have the tools and stuff like that. So I could work as a carpenter. That led into this other job, which was 6 weeks, became 10 weeks, and then so it's sort of like it was one of those things where I just I opened a bank account, a deposit bank account. I thought if I put this money in from construction, from gigs, I could see maybe I could buy something with it, and then it became my full-time job. Like I didn't have any other job, but because I moved to Melbourne and there was lots of work, there was loads of comedy clubs. Sydney had 2, Melbourne had about 5 or 6 of them, and all little gigs as well. And then there were TV shows, which were big national TV shows, and they were employing comics to write on it. And if you could get a wage, if you got 2 or 3 minutes up a week, which was great. The transition was good.
At that time, was there loads of people from home going over to Australia, or was
No.
that after that? Because I was going to say, were a lot of the audiences in the comedy club, would you get people from home?
No, it wasn't. There was no. That was before that first real big wave of Irish people. There was nobody I knew in Melbourne that was Irish, really.
I think that's probably a good thing as a performer, because if you had gone to the comedy clubs and you say who's from home and you get a huge cheer, sometimes it's not cheating, but sometimes you know the things that are going to work, so you sort of focus on that. Whereas there's definitely a difference if I do a gig in Boston and it's just people from home that have come to see me. I'm going to talk a fair bit about home, but when you do a comedy club and there's nobody from home, you definitely have to work that bit harder. You know what I mean?
That was all I knew, and that was kind of really a great thing, because if you just know that you can't make any of those references, and I never really did make any references to the Troubles or Northern Ireland or Ireland, I just thought I'll make it about universal things. Then indirectly it traveled well, but ultimately it worked really well there. And as soon as you open your mouth, people know you're Irish. So
yeah,
and then they would play on it like the worst way. If you were getting TV or press, it was the worst sort of cliche of being Irish. Can we get you holding potatoes or juggling potatoes?
Yeah.
It's saying top of the morning, and like the same as me. If you're Australian in Ireland, you're going, can you wear one of those hats with the corks hanging off it? All the worst things.
Yeah.
So yeah, to not mention it, it was great.
And then you seem to do, like, you did like a lot of films, and I actually remember seeing posters. I remember some of the posters of those films, because whenever I was probably still in school, there's a guy from home. I remember people saying there's a guy, because I had such a big interest in comedy, and I remember in school a couple other guys did, and I just remember, what was the film where do you have like a Guinness moustache?
The Crack.
Yeah.
The Crack. Yeah. That did really well over here. It was a big hit over here. I did well in Ireland, but it was a really big hit over here, which is great. That was the first time I did it. But before that, I did a TV show, which was there was a Tonight Show which I hosted a few times, and then they asked me to host it on a regular on a Friday night, and the network intervened and they said, no, we don't like this guy doing it. We find his accent too strong, so we don't want him to do it, and we don't even want him on the channel. And,
I mean, that's harsh.
I know, and they had to come to me with this news, going like, you can't host it, and you can't even be on as a guest.
And you have to get out.
So that's literally what I did. I got out of the country. I went back to the UK. I was in London. I was doing a show in London. I'd just done Edinburgh, and I'd done a show in the West End, one night in the West End, and they had this TV show, which was, you know, of everyone, all these comics together, you know, a group of like all these different comics, all the different stand-ups on one TV show, and it died in its ass. Comedy supermarket, so like it was as if they were walking in a supermarket, and they all went down. It took everyone down, like everyone that was involved with the show.
Was what other names would have done it? You know, was there anybody that's well known now as well that was on that show?
Okay, it was every comic. Yeah, I don't know. Peter Rosethorn, I think, was on it. He was in Kath and Kim. You know, this is quite a while ago now. This is back in 1991, I think. So
Right.
and they were all Australian comics. Everyone on the circuit would have known them. They either were on stage, on screen, or writing. Everyone was involved. It sank big time. And it's the executive, one of the executives happened to be in the West End and saw me and goes, "Well, freaking, why don't we get him?" The next thing I got a phone call, "Can you come back? All is forgiven." And the biggest 180, the biggest 180 I've ever heard in my life. Where next thing I'm back in Australia, and these guy goes, "We'd like you to do a pilot for your own show in 3 weeks' time. So could you still get writing to do this?" Yep. And we did it. And on that night, the guy goes, "I love that, we're doing it." And it was just commissioned. And it was on a Sunday night at 7:30, which is ridiculous. Like Cilla Black kind of surprise time slot, you know. And it would win. It would win its ratings. It became this ridiculously big kind of family comedy show that, you know, that everyone could watch together. It was just sketch and stand up, and because of that, I got to do the films and do those other things. But that was my initial, you know, introduction to a bigger audience other than stand up.
I remember you did a documentary for BBC Northern Ireland. This is going back 12 years. It was just you and it was like a travel diary almost. It was like you and a mate.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. We did.
Are you just remembering that you did this?
Well, there was two that I did. There was one I did on Northern Ireland for Australia, but then there was one that I did in Australia for Northern Ireland. So
yes, that's the one I saw.
Which one it was. Yeah,
that was great.
So I went from Broome to Byron, which is over the top, that weird part of Australia. Yeah. I like those stories about how things got up, because the guy was telling me, he goes, that got up because they put it on in a meeting at the BBC, and within about 2 minutes, someone said no. The person, the head of the meeting, goes, "No, we don't want to. This is not for us." And they're all okay. And then they tried to turn it off, but for some reason they couldn't turn the thing off, so they just turned the sound down, and then kept it on. And then he goes, slowly through the meeting, people started watching it, and then someone goes, turn that up. And at the end of the meeting, they went, "We're doing this." So it's because they couldn't turn it off.
So are you saying that if I'm pitching any projects to BBC in the next couple of years, just hide all the remotes?
That's the basic. Yeah, but you know, the two guys in the meeting were very adamant that that's what happened. They goes, "I swear to God, this is what happened." They said no, and then said yes. We couldn't put it off.
That's crazy. I've got a couple of quick questions from Instagram. I put out that we were doing this, and people got in touch. So just give me
people that I owe money to, because that list is getting pretty long at the minute.
Yeah, it's people mainly people asking for your PayPal details. Catherine Blair says, "What do you love about Northern Ireland the most?" So is there anything when you're away that you go, miss that?
It's not when I'm away. It's probably when I'm at home. I go, "Oh yeah, this is great." The town I grew up in, there's nothing like home sometimes. When you're in the house you grew up in, and that sense of just feeling that you're in a place where you can really drop your shoulders is, I suppose, more to do with home than somewhere in Northern Ireland. But for me, that just happens to be Northern Ireland.
Are you Portstewart or Portrush?
Portstewart.
Portstewart. Is Harry Shack in Portstewart?
Yes, it is.
That
On the
is
beach.
quality.
But we
Just
used to live
just the setting of it.
We used to live in Portrush in the summertime. We used to rent our house out in the summer and go and live in Portrush. So, I can hang with the Portrush ones.
Yeah.
They always, their jive talk. All right, man. How you doing, man?
I did a gig in Portrush about a month ago, and it was really fun. I feel like I wish everywhere locally had a comedy club, every town, village, whatever. It was in what was the theatre called? The Playhouse.
Yes.
They have a bar in there called Kiwis. I'm sure you've been to, maybe when you've been home. But
that's a great venue. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
But that's
it's
is it venue?
It's in that middle bit, where the bar is, and it was class. It's really good fun.
We used to spend the summer there. There used to be an amusement arcade. The guy that used to change the key, he had the keys, a big bunch of keys, Big John's arse we'd call him, because he'd always bend down. You see the crack of his ass. And he'd be changing the key. Big John's arse. So we used to. I was in Portrush when they blew it up. I remember that quite vividly. Standing at the end of this park when about 3 or 4 bombs went off at the same time.
What age did you been?
Oh, we were about 12 at the time, yeah.
Oh wow! Is it?
Yeah.
And you saw this happen, and I actually don't. What year would that have? I mean, would that have been way before my time?
1980, 1979. You probably look it up. I don't know exactly what year it was that happened. But the Playhouse was blowing up.
Oh, I had no idea.
All those amusements, like 5 bombs went off at the same time. And they blew the whole street up. I remember another time there were 2 guys there. One, they bought a karaoke machine because they wanted to do karaoke when it first started. But
not the paramilitaries, by the way.
No, they hadn't discussed. They hadn't discussed who was going to do the emceeing and talking, and there was a little bit of a scuffle over who was going to be talking into the mic, and there were just people on stage, and one of the guys grabbing the mic, he was trying to hold on to it, and then the other guy let go of it, and it sort of hit him in the lip and bust his lip open, and then the 2 of them started punching on, and that was the first night of karaoke in Portrush.
And the last. I've got a question from Ross who says, opinions on Northern Ireland people bumping into Northern Ireland people abroad. So I guess I'll ask you, do you get many shouts in Australia when you're in the street? Do you get people coming up to you from home?
You do at gigs. You can really, really tell people at gigs being from Northern Ireland, because it's just the accent, of course. Totally all the time.
Well,
it's a weird place that we all come from, isn't it, here?
Yeah. I mean, but there's something beautiful about that, because our accent cuts through every other accent. So, if there's a million people talking, you'll pick up the guy from home. Yeah. You'll pick up our accent because it's unique.
Yeah, totally. I was in Paris, and we were at the airport, and next thing I could hear, I'm thinking, what's going on with the honey bunny? There's loads of this going on. Why do I keep hearing honey bunny? And then next thing, easy jet flight to Belfast is. Oh yeah.
When people from here go to Paris, we shouldn't be allowed to speak. It's such a beautiful city. We should only be allowed to speak in our hotel rooms and not out in public. Daniel Houston asks the big question. Get ready for this. He says, best meal you've ever eaten?
Best meal? Oh, normally the last meal that you've ever had. Tonight was a cracker.
What did you have?
Because it was my wife, salad, and then there's this thing, it's an Italian thing that she had a go at cooking. It's like a quiche, basically a quiche. It's potatoes, eggs, asparagus, and it's hard to beat a good steak, mind you.
Is there a place you go when you come back home? Like if you go home to Portstewart, is there like a cafe or a restaurant that you make a beeline for straight away?
Is it that one that's the old golf club? it's right across the road from our house, the York corner. So
Right,
I
yeah.
go there, and because that's again you can see, catch up with a lot of people. But I'm not a fussy eater, to be honest. I'll eat anything. Depends how hungry I am. But yeah, I'll eat anything.
Chris Henning says, fucking legend, first of all. And he says, ask him if he would ever consider coming back home to live. I mean, I feel like Chris is offering you an invite there to move in with him. But yeah, are you in Australia for good, or?
I don't know. I tend to come home quite a bit. I tend to enjoy going home quite a bit. So, as someone who has a job where you travel, not at the moment, mind you. Having said all of that, we're not going anywhere, are we?
I'm doing a gig in the kitchen next Wednesday.
Right. Is there people outside the window or?
Yeah, no, just
No. I do enjoy coming home. I don't know if I. Who knows? I enjoy coming home. I can tell you that much. Are there any gigs at home, or what are you doing now? Are you trying to do gigs, or what?
Oh, at the minute, no, God, no. There was I mean, this gives you an idea of our collective IQs on the local comedy scene. We were like, we really need to still bring people stand up, and the idea was we had like a WhatsApp group with a couple of mates, and the idea was floated. Why don't we do a gig and stream it to people? But then we were talking about getting like 12 of us together, sharing a microphone in a small confined room and streaming it, which totally would defeat the purpose of isolating. So
Yeah.
nah. At the minute, I'm just trying to put out as many videos as possible, going through old stand-up footage, which is my pet hate, watching myself back,
Yeah.
and trying to put some clips up. Question for two more questions. The Ramore in Portrush says, what's the difference between Portstewart and Portrush? So is there a key difference between people from both of those places?
No, I don't know. They're two lovely parts of the world, really.
Is there any beef? Is there any is there any like
Big, big.
rivalry? Is there Portstewart, Portrush rivalry?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Does it ever get ugly?
I think it has over the years, but no, not really. There used to be that Easter weekend thing where they come down and have big fights on the beaches. I think it was inspired
Yes.
by Quadrophenia, but that's going back a while.
We should
I don't know if they
get that
still do
going
it.
again. As soon as this lockdown's
Yeah,
over, we should get that going again.
that's right. Working a movie, reenacting the fights on the beaches.
Um,
But yeah, both of them have got both of them have got two big beaches, haven't they? They've got that
yeah.
East Strand and then Port Stewart's got that pumping beach. Yeah, they're all good towns. Castle Rock was always tricky to get to because you had to go to Coleraine and around. But
Now that we're talking about these beaches, these lovely picturesque places, I'm going, as soon as this lockdown's over, as soon as it's over, I'm going to go to all, no one's going to do anything. I love that we're all being like, as soon I'm taking up yoga, I'm going to go horse riding. It's going to be a new me after this, and the reality is it's not.
yeah, I'm
Final, I
like
mean,
that all the time. I just reinvent myself every Tuesday and then same shit come Friday.
there's a question from Baz, which isn't really a question, it's more of a dot of the cap. He says, ask Jim, does he know where the toilets are? Which is, of course, a callback to your... Final question, because I'm going to let you go here, but final question. Do you have a stock line or like way of basically like acknowledging people when they come up and reference your stand-up? So if someone says, do you know where the toilets are? Do you have a like a get out where you'll just like give them a thumbs up and walk away, but say something that... Does that make sense?
I do. I just do my eyebrows up and give them the look. So yeah, I know where you're at. But it's nice when people make a reference to the gag that you've done. Absolutely.
Do you ever get it when people make references to gags that you've forgotten? So someone will say something really out of context.
Do that joke. What joke? That joke
Yeah.
you did. Really?
You do it and remind me.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a bit of that. Yeah.
Jim, thanks very
toilet
much.
one's a big one.
Thanks very much for taking the time to chat to me. Appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad we got there with the technology in the end.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, this is just, I need this lockdown to be over so that I can have, guys do this for me, because I don't know how to I mean, it would have been quicker me flying to you or us meeting halfway, just with a
Yeah.
camera. But when all this is over, I'm coming to Australia. I won't.
We'll shake hands and hug when all this is over. But
Yeah.
until then, you're a
On the
safe
Strand.
distance away.
On the Strand, and then we'll pitch to Netflix the Port Rush v Port Stewart
Yeah.
Strand fights.
We will fight them on the beaches.
We'll fight them in the beaches. We'll fight them in Barry's.
That's it. All right, here. Good to speak to you, Shane.
Jim, cheers. Thanks very much.
Good luck. Good luck
Cheers.
with all. See you again.
Bye. Stay safe. Bye.
There we go, guys. There's the Jimeoin episode of the Tea With Me podcast. Thanks a million to Jimeoin for giving up his time and just being a thoroughly nice and funny guy. I've got really, really good guests coming up, and I'm really excited about who we've got. I'm recording one tonight, and I think it's going to be extremely interesting for people. Not the usual sort of guest I would have on the podcast, but let's just go with it, because when we're locked up, we're doing things a bit different. If you guys could do me a massive favor, you could rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, the Tea With Me podcast. If you give it a nice review and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, that'll be great, because we'll rocket up that iTunes chart, and eventually we'll just make tea the number one drink. We're looking to take over water, is what we're looking to do. I want to turn on taps in households, and I don't want hot or cold to come out. I just want tea to come out. That's the dream. So guys, thank you very much for watching and listening. Monday, the Patreon episodes go out. If you want to support the podcast, you can do. That's how you get the Patreon episodes. Patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. And the podcast, as always, goes out. I need to swallow. Oh, I said the actress to the bishop. The normal podcast goes out Wednesday and Friday. I don't know why I'm doing Donald Trump hands. I'm very Trumpy today. Not in that way, like Trap Gas. I just mean I'm using my hands a lot. The video episode goes out on YouTube. My channel, Shane Todd. You can see my gorgeous face there. Thank you very much for listening, stroke watching. See you next time.